Nobody wakes up in Los Angeles and says, today's the day that I'm gonna leave. It usually starts much quieter than that because you're doing well and you've followed the plan. And somewhere along the way, you stop asking, how do I get ahead? And you start asking yourself, why does it feel like it's so much work just to stay in place? That's not failure, that's math changing. And before anybody gets defensive, let me just say this is not my LA bashing video. You see, I was born in California. I work in California. I'm a broker in California. I also go back to visit family often. If anything, this is why is it so hard video. So I want to confirm this isn't me ranting about California. But the data has become crystal clear as of January 2026. This is coming from actual surveys about the quality of life as people exit Los Angeles. And they all say the same thing. Los Angeles residents are now reporting a dissatisfaction about the quality of life that they experience day in and day out. And when we dug into why, well, all the same reasons started popping up. So this isn't speculation, it's not opinion, and it wasn't some Twitter post. It's documented resident feedback on why they left. So let's walk through what people are actually saying and why they've chose to move out of Los Angeles. And the number one complaint that we're getting back isn't traffic anymore. It's actually the cost of living. And what residents are actually reporting back is that the cost of staying feels staggering. And as of 2026, 37% of all renters are afraid of eviction or homelessness. I want to let that sink in because we're not talking about low-income families that are struggling to get by. We're talking about middle-income earners that are now feeling the housing insecurity and pressure. And these surveys actually included six-figure earners that are now feeling financially exposed because of everything that keeps stacking up and getting more expensive year after year. So let's talk about the numbers. Currently, the median sales price in Los Angeles is just over $1 million, and that's with only 1% a year of appreciation. That's a lot of money to have tied up to feel like you're running in place on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up. So here's the real question. Are you paying those LA prices because you feel like it's worth it? Or do you feel like leaving is harder than staying? Because in Reno, that comparable property actually is listed just under $550,000, and it has 5 to 7% of appreciation depending on what the neighborhood that it's in. And to stack the deck, honestly, Nevada has no state income tax, and the cost of living is approximately 45% less than Los Angeles, with rents being about 50% of what you're accustomed to there in LA. So people aren't leaving Los Angeles because they can't afford it. They're leaving it because it just doesn't make sense anymore. So if you're curious about Reno neighborhoods, well, I dropped a video talking about the 5 top neighborhoods throughout the area. And okay, quick pause for just a second. If you're listening to this and you're starting to feel like this sounds like my life, well, you don't have to figure this out alone. Most people I talk to feel stuck in the same spot. They feel like something's off, but they don't know if moving will actually solve their problem. So if you want to talk through the numbers, the neighborhoods, and if Reno even makes sense for you, feel free to grab a time on my calendar for a one-on-one consultation. No pressure, no sales pitch, just clarity. All of my information and the link is down below. Okay, let's get back to it. And sliding from the number 1 spot into number 2 is the issue that most residents in LA complain about the most, and it's all that traffic. Traffic is still one of the most soul-crushing issues of living there, because dealing with the 405 and the 10 at 7 a.m. or 3:30 p.m. is just pure exhausting. But I'm not just talking about commute times. I'm talking about what that traffic actually does to your life. Residents describe this as taking over 30 minutes sometimes to travel 1 mile. They feel cut off from family and friends because going across town feels like an entire event. And they also express issue with living in an area that's so spread out they can't actually use everything there. So traffic doesn't just waste your life, it actually fragments it. You're not just living in a city anymore, you're actually living in your car. And at some point, the realization kicks in that you're no longer just driving to work. Your car now becomes your home, your podcast studio, and your support animal. Reno doesn't just outright eliminate traffic, but it does reset the scales. Because here, the average commute is between 15 to 25 minutes. Highways actually still move during rush hour traffic. And a lot of errands can be completed in under 30 minutes. And just to be clear, Reno has its problems, but the difference is they're manageable. Another issue that we hear is homelessness. It's become one of the emotionally charged issues that LA residents bring up on a consistent manner. And I get it, people view this differently based on perspective. But what we consistently hear is this: despite modest perception improvements in 2025, residents are still expressing concerns and frustrations on how vagrancy is actually managed. Parks and shared spaces feel unsafe or unusable, and it feels like there's a constant exposure to economic gaps with no clear path forward for those struggling. And since 2022, Reno's seen a 60% decrease in homelessness because of tackling the issue head on. That doesn't mean that the issue's disappeared. It just means that progress is evident and visible. Neighborhoods are walkable, parks are used, and downtown feels accessible. Most people don't want a perfect city, but they do want to be in a city that feels like it's headed in the right direction. The fourth issue that we hear out of LA residents is safety and crime. So let's talk about it with real numbers. According to the FBI, violent crimes factored between January of 2021 and January of 2026, the Los Angeles Police Department has on record over 75,000 violent crimes during that period. The Reno Police Department has reported just over 5,000 in that same period. That's not even close. And yes, LA is bigger. And yes, LA is more dense. But density does not have an impact on how safety actually feels. In Reno, crime does exist, but it's localized to the downtown area and the nightlife. In neighborhoods like South Reno, Northwest Reno, and parts of Sparks, fall well below the national average. And that's a difference that families feel immediately. Kids are outside, evening walks feel normal, and there's a lot less background tension. We hear back all the time from buyers that we represent that they didn't realize just how much tension they were carrying until they weren't anymore. But let me say this clearly right here, right now. Reno's not for everybody, but neither is staying in Los Angeles when the trade-offs stop making sense. So if you're at the point where you're actually asking that if leaving would actually improve the quality of your life, then that's the exact family I have every single week with families looking to relocate. So if you'd like to explore this in a one-on-one conversation, we'll explore this and have an honest look at your situation, what you're looking to accomplish, and your timing. No hype, no pushing, and no sales pitch, just honest feedback. And I want you to stay with me from here because this is the point where people start to figure out that moving is not the risky part, it's actually the safer play. So one of the things that we hear back about families looking to relocate to Reno is asking about the economy and the job situation. And we know from doing this for over 2 decades, this is the quiet part that they may not verbalize, but they really want to know. And that is, what about my career? And you know what? That's a fair question. So here's the reality. Reno's unemployment tracks well below the national average. We have major industries here that's in tech and data centers, logistics and distribution, manufacturing, and healthcare. And the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center is actually the world's largest industrial park, coming in with over 107,000 acres. There's currently over $100 billion being invested, and that's actually coming from one company, with over 13 million square feet of construction completely underway. And this is set to create another 10,000 jobs out at the industrial park. And a fun fact to that is, for every job that's created out there, we have multi-sectors that are affected right here locally in the Reno market, creating another 4 to 5 jobs that help support the growth. Think about construction, technology, and then we go into retail, hospitality, and professional services. This isn't a gamble, and your career doesn't need a reset. It turns out it just needs a better zip code. And with all the infrastructure being built out through the region, Reno is not experimenting with remote work. It's actually built for it. High-speed internet is widespread. Fiber is in a lot of the new construction and subdivisions being built, so video calls and large uploads are just routine. Plenty of Bay Area and Southern California families are all quietly logging in and working remotely right here in Reno. I personally have a 1 gig service at my home office that cost me just under $90 a month. So remote work didn't start the migration, but it actually removed the last excuse for a lot of families to make that move and begin working right out of their house. But let's talk healthcare, because this is one of those concerns that some families won't verbalize out loud. And here's the reality. In Reno, you have Trauma 2 services, we have 2 major hospital systems, and expanding specialty services year over year. So is it some massive everything under the sun under one hood? No. But when you actually need care, it's accessible, it's available, and it's improving. And for most families, that's the part that really matters. Now let's talk about financial predictability. Property taxes in Los Angeles typically land between 1.14% and 1.29%. And on a $1.5 million home, that equals between $17,000 to $19,000 in annual taxes. Nevada works different. We actually have constitutional property tax caps. We have gradual increases, we have no Mellorews, and we have no special assessment roulette. In Reno, the effective tax rate on a property is between 0.55 and 0.65%. So in the real world, it translates like this. In California, the way property taxes are handled is they become a point of sale transaction, meaning your taxes will be on your effective rate based on the purchase price amount. Then approximately 6 to 9 months later, you'll get another tax bill called a supplemental, which pays the difference between the increase in taxes and what was being paid before. In Reno, it's different. You actually take over the seller's tax, and there's an annual assessment, but it's capped at 3%. So the older the home typically means the lower the taxes. And that's because of how we depreciate our property taxes here in the county. Permits that are pulled may change this, so we always make sure that we look at this on an individual basis, as it can differ from property to property. But that kind of predictability becomes a real peace of mind for families. Another concern that we hear is utilities, insurance, and all the small stuff. And in Reno, this is where all those little stresses just quietly disappear. Utilities are lower and they're more stable. Insurance is easier to obtain, and it's cheaper because we have more options and more carriers that can provide policies. Vehicle costs are also cheaper and simpler. So it's not one dramatic savings. It's dozens of small stressors that just disappear. A concern that we do get is moving from a place like LA to Reno is about the connectivity and the airport. And it always comes up, so let's address it right now. The Reno Tahoe International Airport actually serves about 5 million passengers every year. It also offers direct flights to LA, the Bay Area, Seattle, Phoenix, Denver, Dallas, Chicago, and at some times of the year, even New York. You'll have short drives, easy parking, and TSA lines that actually move. I can get to the airport typically in about 20 minutes, and with my TSA pre-check, I can get from the curb to my gate usually in about 15 minutes. So no sprinting or stress. And if you want another option, Reno actually has JSX Airlines. These are smaller jets, semi-private experience, often about the same price as commercial, with direct flights to multiple cities in California. You'll avoid the crowds, the chaos, and you'll have the luxury of showing up about 20 to 30 minutes before your flight, walk straight to the jet, and go. So yeah, in Reno, well, you don't have to emotionally prepare now to go to the airport. A question that we often get also with people looking to relocate from Los Angeles to Reno is about the lifestyle. In Los Angeles County, there's about 10 million residents. In the Reno and Sparks area, there's about 500,000. So in LA, there's about 2,400 people per square mile, where in Reno, it's about half that at 1,200 people per square mile. Translation? Well, that's fewer elbows, fewer fingers and horns, coupled with way less personal space being violated at Target. Another part, because we've already touched on this, is the commute. In LA, the average commute is about 57 minutes. In contrast to that, in Reno, it's about 22 minutes. That computes out to 140 hours being returned to your life every single year. And in LA, well, parking feels like a skill that should be listed on your resume. In Reno, you just park and go. Coupled with that is, well, the access to the outdoors is just baked in. You're either walking out your back door or you're only about 10 to 15 minutes away from that trailhead and roughly 30 to 40 minutes from Lake Tahoe. But it's not just about the scenery, it's about the community, because here, that's real. There's about 800 plus events every single year in a metro that's big enough to be interesting and still small enough that you actually move through without planning your life around it. And buyers all say the same thing after they get settled in. I didn't realize how tense I was till I wasn't anymore. So the real decision's this: people don't leave LA because they hate it. They tend to leave because the trade-offs stop making sense. And remember what I said up front, nobody just wakes up in LA going, today's the day I'm leaving. They just wake up and they have a realization that the math has changed. At some point, well, the juice just is not worth the squeeze anymore. And Reno's not the answer for everyone, but for a lot of families, it's the first place they find where life starts to feel manageable again. So if you're seriously weighing out this move, and you just want clarity without all the hype, my team and I are here to help you evaluate whether Reno actually fits your lifestyle, your priorities, and your goals. I'm Chris Raynor, your go-to realtor for all things Reno. And sometimes the smartest move isn't emotional, it's just practical. We'll see you on the next one.